in Thailand while I was over there.
We hope you enjoyed this message.
And now
For
I'm just
more
gonna share a
information
little
about
bit
Center
more,
of Hope Victory Church,
kinda give
please
a
visit
quick overview of,
centerofhopevictory.com.
And then afterwards, I'm going to share a little message based on principle or picture based off of Pastor Kelly Stickles' book, My Victory Starts Here. We studied his book in one of our first classes in the year, and there's a little message I have to kind of like explain the principle in there. But first, I'm going to just kind of share an overview of my year in Thailand. So when I first got there, on the plane, I was flying with both Nathan and Alyssa. Nathan, who also grew up in this church here, and then Alyssa was also flying with us. Many of you also know who Alyssa is. And it was my first time ever on a plane, first time leaving the country, and so going straight over to Asia, first time leaving the country. It was a very big change and challenge, but I was feeling a little bit of everything when it was happening, but it was good and I enjoyed it. And when we arrived a few weeks before the actual school year even started, and that's because we had to show up ahead of time to help prepare for something called Summit. And what Summit is that it's kind of like a conference almost, where this last year was, I believe it was a week long, and what it is every year before the school year, a bunch of leaders from all across the different nations of Victory Asia come over to Summit and just spend a whole week together praising and hearing messages and just reconnecting and encouraging one another and everything. And so the first few weeks, we had to show up early to help set up for Summit, and then when we were there, all the students of Victory Asia Bible College, VABC, had to help out with Summit in some way. So if someone didn't have something already, so if someone wasn't doing anything ahead of time, they were put on what we called the host team, which is exactly what it sounds like. We were the people responsible for hosting everyone who came. So we would greet people as they would come. We would take their luggage up to the hotel rooms, all that stuff, and just help people out wherever they needed help with. And so that happened before the school year even started, and then after Summit, we cleaned up and got ready for the school year, and then the school year started. And what a typical week or day once the school year started, a typical day starts, we wake up for morning exercise at 5:30 in the morning, and yeah. So, yeah, we did that, and we would go to a few different places. Really depends. Sometimes we would just walk around a couple blocks around where the college was. Sometimes we would drive to like an exercise park or drive to a mountain and climb the mountain and climb back down. Just, morning exercise, and then after morning exercise, we would go back to the college, shower, have breakfast, all that stuff, to get ready in time for chapel at 8 o'clock in the morning, where we had worship and then preaching. And every student had to preach a message once every 3 weeks. And so we would do that at 8, and that would go till 9. And then at 9, we would have class. And we had 2-week classes, and every time we would always have like a different teacher come in and teach a different class. And we had a bunch of different classes on a lot of different topics. We had classes on faith, we had classes on worship, we had classes on the Holy Spirit and prayer, and like we had lots of different classes about a bunch of different stuff, and they're all like really awesome. And we had teachers come from all across Canada. I believe we had a couple teachers who came from America as well, and then other teachers who are part of the VABC Victory Asia staff, and also other pastors from around Victory Asia who also came in and taught classes and spoke with us and just spent time with us and everything. And so that was the classes, and then we would have lunch at 12, And then after lunch, we would go into our mentor groups. And what our mentor groups were is the thing that we would sign up for to do. And we had a few different mentor groups to choose from. There was a children's ministry mentor group. There was a media team mentor group, Continuum. There was a worship mentor group, which was a mentor group I was a part of, and a few other mentor groups that people could choose from. And the mentor group I was in was led by the Victory Worship Band that's a part of Victory Asia in Thailand, in Sriracha, the city where VABC is. And they're great. It was a great mentor group. I really enjoyed it. And the Victory Worship Band actually recently came out with a new album themselves, and the album's called Show Me the Greater. It has 11 songs on it, and actually I have one of the songs on the album ready to go in the back there, so if you want, you can go play the song. So this song is called Break Open Sky. I really love this song, and it's one of the songs in Victory Worship's album, so we can listen to that now whenever they get it ready. So. It won't be on the screen? All right, well, we can just listen to it then.
Nothing
Yeah. So if you were interested in finding out more about the Victory Worship Band, just look up either on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, just Victory Worship Band, and it should pop up. But yeah, that's the worship band. That's part of Victory Asia and VABC and everything. And they were the ones who like ran the Victory Worship, the mentor group, the Victory Worship mentor group, which I took in the afternoons and was a part of. And so, in the afternoons in that mentor group, we would like just practice the songs, our instruments, play with the other people in the band, and all that other stuff. And and yeah, it was really awesome. And then on Sundays, we would uh, have student devotions in the morning where just all the students would come together in the morning and just, have our own little worship service. And then just different person would just lead the devotions, and we would just have a big discussion about, what we were studying for devotions, and just like spending time together and sharing what God's been doing in our lives and everything like that. And then in the evenings on Sunday, everyone would go to the international church, the international church, which which was pastored by a guy called Pastor Matt, and his wife P. Becky is the singer of Victory Worship, the voice that you heard singing there. And we would go to that church every Sunday evening, and then after that we would go to like a mall that was a few minute walk away and just have supper there, and then come home and get to bed and time to wake up early to do exercise the next day. So and then on Monday evenings, a lot of the guys, like all the students, us guys, we would meet up in someone's room and just kind of have a little like guys' night or whatever. We would just kind of like just have good conversation with each other and just talk with each other about like personal stuff and what God's been doing in our lives and challenges and victories and stuff that we've been having. And those were really good. And then on Wednesday evenings, we would have a live worship night where we would like live stream. The media team would live stream a worship night where we'd play like a few praise and worship songs, and show it live so that anyone from around the world can watch with us. So that's Wednesday evenings here, but it'd be like early Thursday morning here. It's Wednesday evenings there, so Thursday mornings here. So, yeah, if you're interested, you can also look up the worship nights as well whenever they start again in the next school year. So that's what a typical week would look like. We would do all those stuff. And then after a few months into the school year, I believe it was, we had another conference, a weekend-long conference. Forget the actual name, but it was like a family conference or whatever. And a bunch of people would also like come in and spend a weekend there. And again, everyone at VABC had to help out with that as well. Again, we had like another host team and just like helped with greeting people, brought their luggage up to their rooms, and helped out with children's ministry and whatever else we needed to do. And yeah, I didn't bring any of them with me just to show you, but for both of the conferences, Summit and the Family Conference, everyone at VABC who was like helping out with like the host team, we had two different shirts just so that people knew that we were part of the host team. One of them had like the heart shaped with their hands and said, "Love to help with it." And the other one, if you ever see me walking around with a shirt with Thai writing, I don't know what that shirt says, but I know it says something along the lines of, "How can I help you?" And that was the shirt that we had to wear for the family conference. And a few weeks after that, we had jungle trip, 6 weeks in the jungle. We went to the north, the whole college went to the rural jungles of northern Thailand and ministered to the Karen people who lived in the jungles where we were camping at. Um, I'm not the biggest expert on like the culture and geographical area of the Karen people, but I believe that they're a group of people who live in the northern jungles of Thailand, east Myanmar, and northwest Laos, I believe is the geographical area where the Karen people are. And the area of the jungle where we were camping at had a bunch of different Karen villages in the area. And we would minister to a bunch of those different villages during Jungle Trip. And we spent the first 5 weeks of the 6 weeks, we camped outside of a village that we were really closely connected with, and ministered to a bunch of different villages. We go to like a different village for like a day every week or so, and we would also have different classes there. And the classes were about, and we had 2 classes in the jungle, and they were about learning to read the Bible from the author's perspective. And we read 2 books. We had a class on Colossians and a class on James. And the purpose of it is that we were going to read through the whole books, both Colossians and James, and try to read them from the author's perspective. So what was Paul trying to get across when he wrote Colossians, and what was James trying to get across when he wrote James? And there's a lot of revelation that comes out of those scriptures when you try to read it like from the author's perspective and what the author of the book was trying to get out of it. And so those were really good classes. And again, we had like our chapel. We would do praise and worship in the little hut where we would have classes before every class, and we would always do like the preaching again, based off some of the stuff that we read like the other day or whatever. And yeah, it was really good. And so those were the classes for like the first 5 weeks. And then the last week of Jungle Trip, the 6th week, we decided to go on an outreach where we spent 3 days going to 3 different villages unannounced, going to 3 different Buddhist villages, like unannounced, just to minister to them and everything. And so we packed up everything in the place where we were camping out, and then we drove quite a few hours away, and then we parked the Songtal, the vehicle that we would all like ride in, and then we left it there and hiked for a few hours to get to the first village that we were staying at, and we arrived there late at night. And they were very welcoming, and they gave us the schoolhouse in the village and just let us sleep in there for the night. And then we went out the next day, and we had breakfast. And then after breakfast, we split up into 2 groups. All the students, we split up to 2 groups, and we went from house to house, person to person, praying for and ministering to everyone that we came across and everything. And a few days before, I think it was like our last day of class, when they announced that we were going on this outreach, the little hut where we had our classes was a few-minute walk away from our campsite. And when I was walking back to camp after class, I was by myself at the time, and I just got a stirring inside me to just start praying that I was going to see a miracle take place during the outreach that we were there. And as I kept walking, I just kept on feeling that, hearing like God say that I was going to find a blind person, pray for them, and see them healed. I shared this already when I first came back, but yeah, and then we got to the village and we had our 2 groups. Nathan was in the other group. Nathan shared a little bit from his perspective when he was here a few months ago or whatever. And each of our groups, we would take turns, like have a rotation. A different person was in charge, would take the lead in praying for the next person or household that we would come across. And when it came time for me to lead the prayer, we came across an elderly lady who had a sore knee and was blind in one eye. And then we prayed for her, and her knee was getting better, and she was also saying that her sight was getting back in her eye. And I could also like see like her blind eye looked so much different than her good eye. And I could even see that by the end of us praying for her that her blind eye was healing. And then she said she had a sister from across the street who also had a sore knee and was blind in one eye. And she took us across the street to visit her and pray for her, but she wasn't home at the time. Found out a few days afterwards that the other group was praying for her sister at the same time. Nathan's group was praying for her sister at the same time, and she got completely healed too. And her, by the time we left and went on to the next person, her knee was completely healed, but her eye wasn't completely healed yet. And found out a few days later that from the other group that that after they were done praying with her sister, she showed up to their group, and by the time she showed up to the other group, her knee was still completely healed and her eye was completely healed as well. So within the same hour of us praying for her, her sight was completely healed. So, yeah. In that same village, the last person we prayed for in that village before we had lunch and went out to hike to the next village, we came across a little hut with another elderly woman who was 66 years old, I believe, and when we showed up to her house, she was like looking really down and depressed. She had like no hope in her life, like just based on the way she would carry herself and everything. And when we started talking with her, she had like no joy or happiness in her life. And we started talking with her and got to know a little bit about her and found out that she was a Christian when she was young, but then she married a Buddhist man and kind of left Christianity and eventually had a few kids, and all her kids like left out to other villages or cities or whatever, and I think a few of her kids ended up in jail. And her husband wasn't home at the time, but we started talking with her, and she said that she wanted to become a Christian again, but she didn't think she could. She thought she was like too far gone. But then the person who was in charge of leading the prayer for her told her the story of the prodigal son and all that story. And she regave her life to the Lord, and she wanted to know how to sing a good hymn or something that she knew from childhood, but she couldn't remember any of it. One of the students who were with our group was a Karen girl, but there were 3 Karen students with us, and there were 2 Karen, because we needed translators to talk to the villagers there. 2 of the Karen students were in the other group, and then we had 1 Karen student in our group, and just so we had translators. And then we asked her to sing a Karen hymn to see if that would jog her memory. So she started singing a Karen hymn, and it did jog her memory, and then she instantly remembered the song from childhood, and now she knows that she can sing that song whenever she wants. And we prayed for her some more, and when we ended up leaving her house, her posture was better. She had like joy and hope in her life again, and she was just so thankful and happy, and like it was just awesome when we left her place, how much like joy has been restored in her life. And it was just really, really awesome. So then we had lunch after the 2 groups met up again, and then after lunch we hiked on to the next village, and we thought all 3 of the villages we would go to were going to be Buddhist villages, but actually the second village ended up being a Christian village. And not only that, but the pastor of the church in that village was someone Dr. Al, who was also with us in Jungle Trip, and he and his wife are the ones who started Victory Asia in Thailand 30, 40 years ago, however long it was. And he was actually someone that Dr. Al knew and met from several years ago, and they haven't seen each other for a few years, so it was really cool to see them meet up in that way again. And so yeah, that was really awesome. We got there at night, slept there, had breakfast. It was a Sunday, so we went to the church service, and then we did the same thing, went to house and prayed for the people there, had lunch, and then we went on to the next village. And it was interesting because all the villages are pretty closely connected, it seemed like, because by the time we got to the third village, it wasn't even a surprise to them because they heard from the other villages that we were on our way to their village. So, and so yeah, we did the same thing to them. We slept there, had breakfast, got into our two groups and went house to house praying for people. And again, saw lots of hope restored into many people's lives. And I remember a story from one household that the other group encountered, where they entered a house where there was an elderly woman who was pretty much like on her deathbed, and she had like withered up hands and everything like that. She like couldn't hear or see or anything like that. Like she was in bad shape, and then they were praying for her, and the family said that they like tried to go to like all the witch doctors to like try to heal her, and nothing would work. But then when they came along, they prayed for her, and as they were praying for her, her withered hands started to gain their form back, and her hearing was starting to get better, her sight was starting to get better, and she was just like getting healed right then and there, and she was healed. Not only that, but the whole family was also like saw the light of Jesus, and like just said that they were going to like stop going to the witch doctor and all that stuff. Like, and it was just really cool, like hearing that story from the other group when they came back. It was just an awesome time. Just the whole outreach that we had there and all the lives touched and signs and wonders and healings that happened. Like it was just really awesome. Definitely a highlight of Jungle Trip for me. And then after Jungle Trip, the very last day of Jungle Trip, before we got on a bus and headed back to Sriracha, we finally got to ride elephants, which was a lot of fun. And the seat that I got on the elephant ride was a bit unstable, and I was the only one who got to ride an elephant by myself. So that was another thing. But hey, I didn't get hurt or anything, so it worked out. but yeah, it was really, really awesome, really fun. And so then we came back, and pretty much a month after Jungle Trip, not a month, a week after Jungle Trip, the next weekend, the worship mentor group went over to Malaysia for a weekend to go to a Plant Shakers conference. And for those of you who may or may not know who Plant Shakers are, they're a praise and worship band from Australia who has touched the lives of millions of people around the world, and they're just an awesome band and church and ministry and everything. And yeah, it was just really awesome being there, all the different sessions and workshops and everything that we had at the conference. That was another big highlight for me, going to the Plant Shakers conference in Malaysia. And then that was a weekend. We flew back to Thailand and got back to like classes and everything like that. And then a few months after, I think it was, like 2 months, I think, after the Plant Shakers conference, the worship mentor group and everyone went over to, there was a weekend in Pattaya. Pattaya is a city an hour south of Sriracha, and there's a big mall that has like a 5-star hotel on top of the mall or whatever, that's right across the street from like a beach on Pattaya. And there's a little area for like a stage. And every year, they have something called International Gospel Music Festival, or IGMF for short, where a bunch of different bands and musicians, Christian bands and musicians from around the world come and play like a little show there. And it's a 3-day thing, and there were bands from like Canada, America, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Russia, like Korea. There were like bands from all over who came to IGMF and played, and there are a total of 3 Victory Worship bands. There's the main Victory Worship band, there's the Victory Worship Mentor group, and then there's the Victory Worship youth band, which is the youth group at the International Church. They also have like a band there and everything. And since it was 3 days the IGMF had, one band was going to play a day. The main Victory Worship band was supposed to play the first day, but due to technical difficulties, they couldn't. But the other 2 days, there weren't any technical difficulties that canceled anything. So So the Victory Worship mentor group that I was playing the drums with played there, and then the Victory Worship youth band played the next day, and that was also really cool. And then we got back from IGMF, and then had graduation a few months later, and then the day after graduation, the same day that me, Nathan, and Alyssa would fly back to Canada, we spent the morning and afternoon, because our flight wasn't until the evening, we spent the morning and afternoon on an island just off the coast of Sriracha, where the only way to get to that island is through a 45-minute ferry boat ride. And, we just spent the day there, and a lot of people either swam or just relaxed on the island at the beach there. And, that was a lot of fun, too. And then we got back and had our flight in the evening. And so it's total of 8 months there, and so there's a lot of other details, but that's a basic overview of everything, of a lot of the big things that happened while I was there. So, yeah. Yep. So, I don't want to spend too much time, but now, here, let me bring this a bit closer. Is this good right here? Sure. All right. So, like I said before, one of the first classes that we had in the year, we studied the book Pastor Kelly Stickle called My Victory Starts Here. It's a 40-day devotional book, and I read through the whole book again a second time, and there's a lot in this book, and it's really good. If you ever get the opportunity to read this book, I highly recommend it. It's a great book. But in the book, there's a picture of the different stages of spiritual maturity, and today I just kind of want to show you a basic understanding of how this picture works as it's described in the book here. Hang on. So the picture you're looking at is a big table in the center, and all these different rectangles are chairs. All right? And all these different chairs kind of represents a different stage of maturity in your walk with God and everything. And so the first chair here is not at the table, and they are the unchurched people. So people who aren't born again yet. They aren't even at the table yet. And so in order to get to the first table, the thing they need to do so there's different, so the stages to go from the unchurched, the next stage after unchurched is born again Christians. So once you've confessed that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that he rose from the dead, you become born again, and that's the first stage of maturity around the table. And then after you're born again, the next stage after that is little children in the faith. Right? So these are just all the different levels of maturity around the table. And then this one up here are young adults in the faith. Right? And then this last one here, which is the goal that all believers should strive for, the highest level of maturity that all believers should eventually get to, are fathers and mothers. All right? So these are all the different stages of maturity in your walk with God. And And there are different steps that you need to do to get to the next stage of maturity. If you're unchurched, the first thing that you really need to do is just to attend, like attend church or whatever. Attend church, hear about the gospel and who Jesus is, and believe. And once you attend and whatever, and so attend church to get an understanding of who God is, and if you believe that, and if you get to the point where you believe that Jesus is Lord and that He died and rose from the dead, then you become born again. And so this is like infancy. You're a little child, and so to become born again to little children, you need to do more than just attend church. You need to connect. So like connect in like a small group or with a small group of other believers, so you can talk about different things with other believers, kind of like learn from other believers so that you get a better understanding of like the character of God and the character of Christ, figure out who He is, and so then you mature from just being like an infant in the faith to little children. So connect with other believers. And then to grow from little children into young adults, you need to read the Word for yourself and grow yourself. All right? So now you're still like attending church, you're still connecting with other believers and learning from them, but now you're also taking initiative and reading the Word for yourself and growing your own faith, like self-feeding. Like here, you're not relying on others to feed you the Word. Now you're feeding yourself the Word, and you mature into young adults. And then from young adults, the next thing you need to do to become a father or mother is to serve others. So like serve in the church, it's not just all about you anymore. Now you're going and helping other people. And in order for one to become a father or mother, you need to reproduce or bring like another person into the faith. And so what fathers and mothers do is that from here they invite others. So they like invite the unchurched to attend church so that they can become born again and keep the cycle going, so that fathers and mothers raise up people who eventually become other fathers and mothers, and so that the cycle keeps going and that we create like disciples, right? Because we're not supposed to go into all the world and just make believers. We're supposed to make disciples, other people who make more disciples, right? So we don't stop here. We keep going into the father and mother stage and keep going around, right? So these are all the different steps. But then there's this one up here, which is a spot you don't want to ever end up in. This spot is called the Highchair. Right? And so the reason why it's located in between young adults and fathers is because the Highchair is where young adults in the faith end up who don't serve, or in like people who still expect, like believers, young adults who still think that like it's all about them. Like people who rely on the fathers and mothers to keep like catering to their needs because, they have needs that they want to be met. And instead of like trying to serve other people, they still expect other people to serve them. And so they're pretty much acting like little children, and they're sitting up there in the high chair. And if the fathers and mothers cater to that, and they have to go and serve and cater to everything that the young adults in the high chair wants, then they have to turn to help and serve the people in the high chair. And in turning forward to face the people in the high chair, they're turning their backs on the unchurched. And this is what causes churches to stop growing. So it's very important that you never end up in the high chair, right? Once you reach the stage, you got to start looking at how you start serving others instead of just figuring out what can people do for me, right? And so, like, yeah, Pastor Kelly Stickle explains it much better than I did in the book and everything, but this is like a basic understanding of how it works. And then also, not only does the cycle work, like this is the way how the cycle should work, just going around the table and avoiding the high chair. But this cycle can also go in reverse. If you're a father and mother who keeps like reproducing, like inviting people and everything like that, and then you stop, and you stop inviting and you stop serving, or then you can, like you stop reproducing, then you can go back into like the young adult stage of maturity. And if you stop like serving and everything, and you stop reading the word for yourself, then you go back to the little children stage. And if you like really go back and stop connecting with other believers and like your small groups and everything, then you can go back to your infancy. And if it really gets bad, then it can go to the stage where you even stop attending church altogether. Like, so you pretty much have nothing to do with it in your life. So ideally, this table and this cycle should go around this way, but also be careful that, and also be aware that it can go in reverse too, and that's not at all what you want to happen. So yeah, hopefully you understand the way I explained it, but yeah, this is a really important thing to understand. So yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, David. I'm sure all of us have a much better idea what goes on in Thailand, not that it's just plain hot. But I thought what really got me here was to serve. Going to Thailand is serving. Going to Trillium Court is serving. Greeting is serving. And the thing that I think we have to figure out is, where are you supposed to serve? Because just because David went to Thailand doesn't mean all of us are supposed to go to Thailand. Just because I go to Trillium Court doesn't mean everybody's supposed to go to Trillium Court. You have to find where God wants you to be, where it won't necessarily be where your comfort level is to start with, but where God will put you in a comfort level that He will give you the comfort level once you get there sometimes too. So find the place to serve and follow that. Lord, we thank you for this day, for David's testimony of Thailand, for his teaching on how we need to grow and not get stuck in one spot. We just ask, we go today, you be with us. Help us to find that spot to serve. Amen. Next Sunday, Dunsmore Park. We've never said anything about rain or shine, but I'm assuming it's rain or shine. Same time, yep. 10, same time. And we still need those 3 or 4 more places signed up for.